to another professional prep video. So in this video, I'm going to cover, as promised, the other type of Riemann sum that we did not talk about in our previous video. So previously, we covered left Riemann sums and right Riemann sums, otherwise known as LRAM and RRAM. Now, in this video, I'm going to cover MRAM, which is in between RRAM and LRAM, as you will see in just a second. So typically, it's known as a midpoint Riemann sum, as I said here. So this is the same exact question. It's a bit of a different table, but it's the same question. Approximate the total distance traveled. This is our t value, so times on the interval 0 to 8, and our miles per hour, so the speed at which, let's just make something up, at the speed at which someone was running in miles per hour at the given times of t. So let's approximate the total distance that this person traveled over the interval 0 to 8. That's very important, the interval 0 to 8. I know I didn't write it down, but that's very important. Using not a left, not a right, but a midpoint Riemann sum approximation. So, first of all, you should know that LRAM and RRAM you can typically do with any table they might give you, but for a midpoint Riemann sum, you need a specific type of table in order to solve these problems, and you'll see why in a second. So we're actually going to use, you might be tempted to use 4 subintervals for this, 0 to 2, 2 to 4, etc., etc. But in this case, we're actually only going to use 2 subintervals of length 4 rather than 4 subintervals of length 2. And I actually could not do it with 4 subintervals of length 2. And you'll see why in just a second. So let me start working on my 2 subintervals of length 4. So we know that we start off by multiplying 4 by something. Now, if this were LRAM, we would have gone with this 8. If this were RRAM, we would have gone with the 3. For MRAM, we're going to go with this middle 5. Now, here's a very important note about our choice here. Midpoint Riemann sums, once you understand left and right Riemann sums, midpoint Riemann sums are not difficult. But let me make this point very clear. Say that you were not provided with the coordinates 2, 5 here. Say that this 2 were a 1. You could not evaluate a midpoint Riemann sum on this table if this were a 1. This is a 2, which is right in between 0 and 4, which allows you to use the corresponding y value of a 5 in the midpoint Riemann sum. However, if this 2 were a 1, you could not do a midpoint Riemann sum on this table. If this 2, 5 didn't even exist, you could not just average 8 and 3 to get the middle between the times 0 and 4. So you could not just go with 3 plus 8 over 2, 11 over 2, 5.5. You have to have the explicit data point with the t value or the x right in between the ends of your interval, and you need to use the corresponding y coordinate. And that is why I said you cannot do 4 subintervals of length 2, because if you try doing that, you run into a problem right away where you want 2 times what? It's not 2 times 6.5. You cannot just average these two. So you don't know where the speed of the runner at time t equals 1, and thus you cannot evaluate a midpoint Riemann sum on that table. But now that's the most important takeaway from these midpoint Riemann sums. If you can remember that, then this problem becomes fairly simple. So 4 times 5 plus 4 times, and now we're looking at the subinterval from 4 to 8. The middle is at 6, and the speed at t equals 6 is 7. So we get this, which is 20 plus 28, which gets us, and t is in hours in this problem, by the way. I should specify that, but our answer to this is going to be 48 miles. So this was not a very tricky formula once you understand left and right Riemann sums, but you need to understand that concept that you actually need the explicit middle point. So you could not do this if this were 1, 5, or if the 2, 5 didn't exist. So you cannot always evaluate a midpoint Riemann sum on any table. You need to make sure that you actually can before you go ahead and do it. And that will influence the number of subintervals you take and their length, obviously. But that is all I have for you for this video. If you have any questions, please feel free to email us or leave a comment below. Thank you very much and have a great day.